During the COVID-19 crisis, we are all obviously working remotely, working from home, doing the whole isolation bit to make sure that we don't spread the virus. And at this time, it's really good to really check in on those that we care about, our friends, our family, and of course, our colleagues. So I want to use this opportunity to connect with some of the people that I admire and respect, and want to hear their story about what they are doing. And my friend today is Peter Hatherley-Greene PhD. And Peter and I have worked together on various projects throughout the years, and we look at life from the same sort of angle, but with different perspectives. I.e., we have an intention to create great value and do the best we possibly can. And if you think about where we are at the moment, Peter, I see the whole experience we're going through right now with COVID-19, and the forced changes that we're having to make for our daily interactions. And we've got nothing really to base this on in terms of what do we do and how do we best combat it. And I thought, right, okay, we are fairly experienced in life and in professional and both personal experiences. And I would really love to get your perspective on what you see as the word resilience is being used a lot at the moment. We should all be building up our resilience. Because we don't really have anywhere to fall back on with this particular experience, I would really love to get your perspective on what challenges you've seen throughout your lifetime, professionally and personally, and what you've actually done to overcome some of those, and how you might be able to build a synergy of what might be done to take through and help us to build more resilience in today's crisis for COVID-19.
Thanks, Darren. First of all, let's address the elephant in the room. And the way I see that elephant is none of us have really experienced anything like this before in our lives. Mm. So this is entirely new. So when I look back over my life and I think about some of the hardships and difficulties I've faced, yes, a lot of them being personal. The loss of my mother when I was a young boy. Moving over here in 1995 was exciting, but it was also quite traumatic as well, because it felt like when once 2 or 3 months into the shift, I felt like I'd taken a deck of cards which represented my life. And when I landed at Dubai in August 1995, I threw them all up in the air. And it took me about a year to collect them all together again and put them back into a pack. Yeah. So that was exciting, but it was also traumatic as well. So, what you asked me? What can I use as a reference for this period of time?
Because this is also a very traumatic experience.
It is. I mean, it's affecting us. Obviously, it's affecting us financially, particularly for people like you and I who are in people-facing professions such as training and consultancy. I mean, it's that has a little bit shifted onto the online platform, but still, there's been a hit. It's affecting us emotionally because we can't go outside. We feel a little bit trapped, and so therefore, there's definitely constraints that I'm facing. If I'm looking for a reference, I guess I'm looking at the change curve, which is based upon Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's grief cycle, which of course was 5 stages of which was in her cycle, but people have changed that to just these 4 stages as you're going through change, and it starts with stage 1, which is denial. Okay, and I can remember this going back to to the death of my mother, when she died, there was definitely a period, I remember this quite clearly, still feel it, period where I was kind of numb, and I was 13 at the time, and I didn't really, I hadn't really processed it. And it took me about 3-4 days in that sort of denial phase until I actually accepted it. And then after acceptance, then you go down to the second stage, and it's kind of like a U-curve. So you start at the top, and then you go down, and as you go down into this is probably the most uncomfortable stage. This is when you feel you resist it. You resist the change. So, I asked the question, why did she die? And, was it my fault?
Seeking answers, yeah.
Seeking answers, and feeling miserable. And then eventually, of course, she wasn't there in my life anymore. And obviously, the longer she wasn't in my life anymore, the more I had to accept this new reality. So then you move into this third stage of acceptance, but also exploration. It's about thinking, okay, so, what can I do now to honour my mother in a way that gives her respect and honour? How do I need to show up in my life? Well, of course, I didn't answer that very well at all. I went into about 4 years of mania and, really had really tough years, actually, as a teenager. And it was only probably in my 40s that I started to behave in a way that really did honour my mother's memory. But I had a tough time in my teens. And then eventually, I came out of that phase, that difficult phase, and that exploring phase, which wasn't particularly productive.
Mm-hmm.
But then I eventually came into stage 4, which is basically committing to a new life, accepting the fact she was gone, which of course by that stage would be at least 10 years.
Wow.
And then married a very good woman who's still with me after 40 years, having a family and producing a career which is worthy of both myself, my family, and my mother's memory. And so for me, what I'm experiencing right now is stage 3 of the change curve. So I've gone from denial. We all did that, right?
Yeah.
We didn't know what was coming. So, this was sort of happening in China, and really none of us really thought. I mean, I was still booking, like you. We were still booking gigs, right, in February.
Absolutely, yeah.
Being very optimistic now looking back on it. And so we were very much in the denial stage. And I think definitely out of stage 2 now, definitely out of this resistance. And I kind of got out of that early March, I think. It didn't last long. And I just thought, okay, this is where we are. And that's when I started making decisions around moving coaching and training online, and there's been some good opportunities there. So it's been a good move. And I'm still feeling, optimistic about where we're heading.
No, thanks for that, Peter. And again, I think depending on who we are, those different stages will affect us in different ways in terms of how quickly we might be moving through that curve, or we might stay at certain stages of that curve.
It's true. What about you? What was your experience of this latest crisis that we're facing?
Since I got involved in NLP a good few years ago and going through my sort of practitioner and master practitioner certifications, I guess I'm programmed now to see the world in a very positive light, and everything from language to actions and intentions are all positive. You mentioned about what was going on in China. I didn't dream for 1 second it would get to this stage for my own personal experience. And I was always looking at it from a positive outcome, thinking, well, they're working on it, they're going to control it. And as the days started to develop, you could see that it was starting to spread to different parts of the world. And I was still remaining very, very positive. And like you say, we were still booking gigs. And I had the whole of March planned out, where I was going from Cairo to Bangalore.
I remember. You had a crazy month.
Moscow, right? Istanbul. It was crazy. I was so looking forward to it, because the whole sort of Istanbul, Kazakhstan and Moscow was in 1 week. It was going to be so awesome. And all of a sudden, I think the reality kicked in when some of these gigs were being cancelled due to the protection of the people, in and obviously me going into a new part of the world as well. And it started to become real. So I guess I was going through that denial stage, thinking it wouldn't affect me and my family personally. But when it started to have that impact, then it started to become very relevant to me and the impact it was going to have on my family. But the forced changes that are coming, now, as you say, it's very optimistic, because I guess you and I have maybe thought about how we need to move our business onto an online platform, and it was something that was coming at some point into the future. But all of a sudden, there's there's like a big exclamation mark now. It's got to happen now. If you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. So that's been a bit of a wake-up call for me. And I guess that the whole optimistic approach could also be framed by other individuals as denial or burying your head in the sand. And it's been a bit of a wake-up call. But again, the technology is there. It's been there for a long time. Now, a lot of people are jumping onto the bus to start to put that technology to good use.
You're right. I mean, I think, I had participated in Zoom meetings before a lot, but I'd never considered it to be used for training, because we always felt that face-to-face was more effective. And I still believe that. I still definitely believe that. But the future rushed towards us, right?
Absolutely.
And bringing with it these opportunities that, as you say, we were kind of aware of them, but now there was an urgency. We had to adopt these new methods. Yeah.
I saw a great video posted on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and the editing was just phenomenal, really. And it was just really about, we've been focused on creating success and moving at such a rapid pace, and we haven't really thought about slowing down. And then as it started to go through the editing of the frames, it started to get to the point of where we were starting to slow down, forcefully having to start slowing down, and then the social distancing. And it's gone from the icon of having like the play button where we are going at 100 kilometers an hour, and then it started to go to the social distancing, and it had these two sort of images of the frame separated by just dark space, and it looked like a pause button. And it was actually saying, we've gone from play to now into a pause. This gives us an opportunity to pause and reflect on what we do moving forward, so how we create our future. I thought it was just, again, the power of storytelling. It was just so beautifully edited. And this is a great time to pause and reflect, I think. But what could you give? You said earlier on about, what you could do to really honor your mother and sort of do her proud. And if you were able to offer any guidance or synergy of what one might be able to do moving forward to take this example that you shared and how you might be able to bridge a gap and use that to build their own resilience to deal with the COVID-19 crisis, what would that sort of insight be?